should be good to go. All right. I'm going to presume that we are now live. I'm not able to really check on the phone or the live stream stuff because there is a delay in that. So welcome everyone for joining us today. My name is Ahmad Barami. I'm a division manager here at Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health. And today I'm joined by three experts that are going to really help us have a discussion to help kick off Substance Use and Alcohol Awareness Week. So all week long, we're going to have some information on our social media, on our Facebook and Instagram related to some facts around Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. But we thought kicking it off, we wanted to have a discussion about that. And so we were fortunate to get a couple of experts that are going to be able to not only help us discuss substance use, but also we're going to put in a framework of how it impacts veterans and just veteran substance use. But if we listen to the conversation and we really think about it, by educating and informing our public through hopefully this dialogue, we're also going to be able to prevent some of the challenges that people face with substance use down the line, and people who are not just veterans, but anyone out there. So I think some of the things we're going to talk about might be very specific for veterans, and I think some of the things that we're going to talk about hopefully will be beneficial just for people out there in general. So thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Ahmad. I'm going to be moderating and having these gentlemen really share their expertise and personal experience in this. And so I'm going to start first with based on the way you guys look on my screen, with Raymond. Raymond Gonzalez is an outreach specialist with the San Joaquin Valley Veterans, a project of WestCare. He is a former U.S. Marine. See, Raymond, I knew to say former, never X, former U.S. Marine.
Yes.
He's been a certified substance abuse counselor with KD and ACCBC for close to 15 years. He's provided substance use counseling to adults, to justice-involved populations. He currently he's worked for the past 9 years with veterans as a counselor and outreach specialist. And he's currently working with focus on veterans that are experiencing homelessness and trying to assist veterans to transition from the streets into housing along with the VA. And he has a personal experience, lived experience as well, in that Raymond has 18 years clean and sober. Congratulations, Raymond. Thank you for joining us today. Next, I'm gonna go to Jeremy Duvall. Jeremy is a former U.S. Army specialist, right? Did I get that right? You served 6 years in the Army, as well as serving multiple tours in Iraq. He also served as a military contractor. Has got a lot of combat experience. You currently work in serving veterans and supporting veterans with their various maybe transition needs, employment needs, benefit needs, things of that sort. And Jeremy himself has a lived experience of having battled some substance use, and he'll talk a little bit about that later, I'm sure. And has experienced even homelessness as a veteran, but today is on his feet with a beautiful family and is working to support other veterans in basically reaching success and sobriety and wellness, right? So thank you, Jeremy, for your dedication and service. And Michael Pritchard, I'm gonna give Michael's intro shorter because I've worked with Michael, and Michael, I know all of the intricate details of all the work he does, and I don't want to go through all of it. So Michael, later on you can say, hey, you left out a bunch of stuff, but I wanted to make sure we get into the conversation. So Michael's also a certified substance abuse specialist. He's also a trainer for several institutions on training individuals around substance use. He's a part-time instructor at Fresno State, covering issues around substance use and addiction. He's worked as a SED counselor, as a substance abuse specialist, as a staff analyst. Currently, he is actually our department's staff analyst overseeing our SUD prevention services and kind of our go-to in-house expert on things related to substance use. I want to get this part right, Michael. So I had that you were the past president, was it, of CPAC, which is the California Consortium of Addiction Programs and Professionals. Okay, I want to make sure I give you the right title on that one. And Michael, while not a veteran himself, does come from a family of veterans, and Michael himself also has some lived experience, which I'm sure he'll share a little bit about or touch a little bit about during other conversations. So all three of our panelists do have some lived experience. We're not going to focus on that. We're really focusing more on information that might be very that might be beneficial to the people listening, but I think their lived experience, I want you to know, is going to give you a context of what they're talking about. So they're not just, theorizing, they're actually giving you firsthand experience, but also I think their experience will help you kind of frame maybe some things that they shared an example or story as far as how they're seeing it. So thank you guys. With that, we're going to go ahead and dive into our discussion points. And so one of the things I want to do as we get into this is we'll put some information out at the end of this live stream, some websites and places where you can get some info specifically around substance use, some prevention information. Like I said, on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, there'll be things related to National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week that you can find. Some info on opioids and also where to access some additional treatment and care. And we'll get some of that info. Also, I'll have our team get some of that info, Raymond, so we can also plug in for veterans info on San Joaquin Valley veterans and if people need to reach out. So with that said, I want to get into the discussion, but I want for the people out there listening to clarify that substance use, misuse is not in any way, shape, or form. It does not discriminate. It does not target just veterans. It does not target, it's anyone and everyone may be susceptible to it. In this particular conversation today, we just happen to be talking with some experts who are veterans and are going to frame it in that discussion. So I wanted people to I don't want us to stigmatize of like, oh, veterans are the only ones that have this. Everyone experiences this. Every family experiences this. Today, we're just happen to be talking about it in that context. So with that said, do you guys, based on your own experiences, feel that past experiences, past traumas, even pre-service, can be things that can play a role in someone or put someone maybe at higher risk for developing a substance use or an alcohol misuse problem or challenge or even full-on addiction? So do you think life experiences even prior to service can contribute to that or can put you in into a higher risk category? Anyone?
I would definitely say yes. Anyone, like you said, is susceptible to alcohol and drug use, but if you're, let's say you get injured and you're taking drugs or the doctor prescribes medicine and he sees that, oh, you're taking over your limit and trying to get more, he'll probably more likely wean you off of it or try to wean you off of it or give you something else, and then the something else is not working, so you try getting something else from the streets. So yes, it could play a role in it. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, just using myself as personal experience. I started around 12 years old, where I was getting raised in the wrong environment, and started at 12 years old, starting to do substance abuse and different things like that in a variety of different levels. So I actually joined the military to get out of that lifestyle and take me out of it. But unfortunately, 6 years later, when I received an injury, I was back at home, nothing better to do, feeling sorry for myself, and I caved into it again. So I would definitely say pre-service and during service, what's allowed and what's not allowed. You're still allowed to heavily abuse alcohol, in my opinion, in the military. So at one shape, form, or another, you are abusing a substance, and it definitely allows you to connect with it on the outside as well, even harder than before, due to either traumatic experiences, deployments, just things that you're trying to not go get help for, and you do it yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes those consequences are devastating.
Michael, what's your take?
Yeah, so we know anybody in the field, anybody who works in the human service profession of any kind of knows that trauma and adverse childhood experiences are highly correlated, though not causal, right? So we have a lot of people that suffer from adverse childhood experiences and have some innate or external resilience factor that helps buffer the effects of that so they don't go that direction. So a lot of people, though, with childhood trauma, begin to, when they experiment with drugs, find that when they use drugs, those drugs just don't make them feel good. They also work to fix an issue for them emotionally. And so that drug begins to feel more necessary for them for kind of like daily emotional survival. And it morphs into a habit over time. In adolescence, substance use disorders can develop much more quickly than they do in adults. And most people are vulnerable until about after the age of 25, it begins to drop, but they're in that vulnerability period from that time. So yeah, I think a lot of, and I've always wondered, especially with my dad being a vet and an alcoholic that ultimately cost him his life, I'm wondering how many people actually have a lot of maybe the beginnings of substance use issues before they ever go into the military, and it may just be alcohol, and maybe have some of these adverse childhood experiences. They go into the military, pick up some discipline, you know what I mean, have something, and then have something catastrophic happen like Jeremy down the road, and then end up picking up that habit later. So some of it is trauma, early childhood trauma, and some of it is genetic predisposition, which you don't really ever know that you have for sure until it takes over your life. And if you have a parent or grandparent that has this issue, you can kind of assume like, hey, I may be at risk for this. But about 40 to 60% of addiction that develops is genetic. And then adverse childhood experiences and other traumas kind of like are risk factors for furthering your risk of developing that issue down the road.
Real quick story with me. I do come from an alcohol and drug family. My dad was an alcoholic and my mom, and they fought all the time. But, my mom passed away at an early age and my dad turned to alcohol. So I joined the Marine Corps, like Jeremy, wanted to get some discipline. While in boot camp, I went to infantry training school in San Onofre, and I was getting drunk, went to EM Club. I was only 19. But there I got away from the gang and I got lost and I got hit by a car. I ended up in the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton, and the nurse asked me, well, how much do you drink? And I told her how much I drank. She goes, well, after your boot camp training, you're not going to your orders. You're coming back here. And I was only like 19 to the hospital for a 60-day treatment. And that's when I first got introduced to AA. And then I went to Camp Margarita. In Camp Margarita, all they did was get drunk, but they put me on antabuse. And on antabuse, I'm an alcoholic. I started drinking on antabuse. And they tried to get me to AA and everything, and it just didn't work, but I just drunk during the military. But yeah, people try helping you, in any way they can. And they see that, you have a issue, a drug problem or alcohol problem. And, but when I was in the military, did try to help me in ways. But yeah, I believe that people with injuries or predestined are predestined in some way to, it's their tolerance level. It's like your pain management, and you get to a point where, it's not working and you want something else. And you want to get to that feeling where you're numbed.
Jeremy, you had shared with me once before that, you had experienced a pretty serious, service-related injury that, you were getting treated for, but then that kind of eventually set the stage for some of your challenges later with substance use. Can you share a little bit about that and just kind of how that became a challenge for you from an injury-related kind of, because you touched a little bit already on, just having had some of the experiences in your youth and already the exposure and things like that, but then, getting away from that through the military, but then how maybe an injury, and I know that I've heard that has also happened with a number of other, veterans too, that they experience service-related injuries. And in the course of treatment for that injury, it ends up eventually actually leading to some type of maybe misuse or addiction.
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, to a lot of people watching that even aren't veterans, you're familiar with a car accident. You're familiar with, maybe you're a collegiate athlete. You get a devastating knee injury. all sorts of different types of injuries. Doesn't have to be combat or even training related. And that changes your life. You know, it changes your mental status. It changes the way that you were able to conduct yourself, be athletic or professional, or maybe make it to professional, right? With those kind of ideologies. So a lot of times, even athletes or veterans, we get this injury. At my time, I was 24 years old. I was thinking I was going to be in and out of war the entire time. And that's what I was bred for. That's what I was brainwashed for, essentially. And that's what I was made for. And when that got taken from me, I felt like I lost everything. It kind of built up a lot of anger that I wasn't able to get back out there with my people. And so I got prescribed these yellow Norcos from the VA center. And you know, I needed them at the time. At the time, I couldn't squeeze my hands. I couldn't open a water bottle or anything like that. So unfortunately, getting into about my second year with these, they obviously weren't giving me the same feeling. I started doubling up on my medication by my own. Eventually, before you know it, I'm reaching out, buying other people's prescriptions. You know, I worked at the medical center at the time, very accessible to me. And so before you know it, back in about 2018, I noticed a major issue, right? And my doctor caught me with about 5 different ones in my system. She said, "Oh no, you're done. You're going to kill yourself." At the time, I didn't understand it. So it sent me into my first ever withdrawal, the first time in 6 years. And I kind of lost everything at that point. You know, I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what was happening to me. So I reached out and I started doing the cheaper fentanyl pills that were coming out. But before you know it, I lost about 3 of my good friends to ODing on them, devastating their lives, their families' lives, their children's lives. So I reached out to the program at the VA, the SUDP, ended up being removed there twice due to federal laws that were conflicting with state applicable laws, that something was legal here in the state, but federally it was illegal still. So they took me off the Suboxone medication. I went back into opioid abuse after that. And then essentially I found an outside center that was able to prescribe me the medication without in the use of being removed for state legal activities. And before you know it, this was 8 years. I had lost everything. I lost my daughter. I lost my house. I lost my vehicles. I was homeless at one point. Actually, Michael on the panel was the one who spoke to me in the gym multiple times, giving me some avenues of advice and some tools to use. And I think that's critical, is finding the tools that work for you, finding the motivation that works for you. You know, as veterans or even as public citizens, you can blame all you want the system, but eventually you got to blame yourself, and you got to take responsibility for abusing the way you abuse them. And you got to find other tools and resources that are going to work for you. It's not going to be easy, but it is definitely worth it. I'm going on 4 years now. You know, my life has completely turned around. And if you guys ever need help or anything, you know, please try to find one of us, reach out, and I'm willing to assist in any way possible.
Thank you, Jeremy. Kind of going back to something that was, I think you guys touched on a little bit earlier, and I want to come back to, was as far as, you know, I think Raymond, you had touched on a little bit as far as, you know, drinking, you know, once you know you were in boot camp and things of that sort. So I want to make sure that we're clear on this. We're not at all saying that the military promotes, like, it's not a concerted effort to promote of like drink, you, that's not what they do. They have strict regulations, right? Like, hey, you break these rules, you get caught using things like that, you can get discharged. In your case, you know, they were trying to get you connected to AA. So I want to make sure I clarify the statement that we're not saying that they promote. And at the same time, though, for those of you guys that have been in the service, do you feel, though, that there is a culture, regardless, you know, that maybe regardless of what the military is trying to do, of, hey, we're trying to promote healthy, well-oiled machines, but is there within there a culture that either promotes or is more accepting of self-medicating or maybe, alcohol misuse or things like that? So, Ray, if you want to kind of pick that up to where the Marine Corps is not the one promoting it, but once you get into the ring of fire, are there people there that kind of go like, yeah, like it's cool, let's get pissed drunk, or whatever it is, or is that kind of viewed as like, hey, if you got a problem, let's go have a couple of drinks and we'll talk about it that way, or get rid of it that way, right? Was that something that you experienced, or did any of you guys experience firsthand, as far as just kind of it would be more of an accepted thing on the.
When I was in the Marine Corps, it was back in the 70s, 79 to 80s. And back then, if you were in the Marine Corps, you could go into the EM club. I was 19, I went to the EM club. I was 20. I mean, all the guys, when we're on tour, we all drank. We went to Texas Street, Korea. We went to Okinawa. And it was just a culture that you just go out and get drunk, and everyone practically did it. But, they didn't promote it. It was just
It's kind of
right.
The culture.
Right. And now I talked to a couple of veterans that recently got out, and now they have more stricter rules about pay raise, depending on what kind of pay grade you do have, like an EM4 that you can go to the PX, and you have to be at a certain pay grade to buy alcohol or liquor, like rum, whiskey, and you cannot have it in your barracks. You can't have it nowhere around you. And nowadays, they've gotten more stricter, right, Jeremy? Wouldn't you say that? They've gotten more regulations, more policies in place.
I kind of got out about 10 years ago now. So it's kind of like in the middle of the war. So I would hope so at this point, ending the long wars, I would hope they get to an acceptability and acceptance of soldiers do run into issues that they have to deal with a lot on their own due to the degrading that happens in combat jobs, or even non-combat jobs of going to medical leave or sick call. That used to be really frowned upon. So Raymond, I hope, for the soldiers' sake, that they do get a grasp of what is going on. But a lot of times the fault is, I would say, on the culture, but the fault is also, it does happen to be with the departments. And let me explain why, because when you're entering the service, you go through military entrance processing stations, so MEPS, and you're told there by a recruiter, these are the questions they're going to ask you. You're going to say no. I don't care if you've done it before in the past. I don't care if you've ever done it. You're going to say no, you've never done it. So you're already lying to get in about prior substance abuse use, right? And then let's say, for example, you go on a tour, they do a mental health evaluation on you before the tour. You've been gone 12, 15 months, 6 months, depending on the department that you're with. And you come back into a processing station for about 3-4 weeks. At this point, everyone wants to go home. Everyone's tired. Everyone's exhausted. Issues do start arising, actually, when you leave the combat theater. You can't sleep, the nightmares. But people just want to get home. So they're asked these questions, do you think you're going to go outside and abuse alcohol, abuse drugs? Of course, everyone's going to say no, because if you say no, you're actually held there for another 6 months to a year before you can even go home and see your family. So I think the in processing, out processing needs to be a little more lenient on things, and understanding that people are going to lie to get home. So they're doing this system to where it evaluates you, not a real factual evaluation, because you're trying to get home. So I think the military definitely, including the VA, I love the VA. I would be nowhere without them, but I do understand that they are a little, about 15, 20 years behind the curve. And they need to pick this up, because this is leaving people to commit suicide, unfortunately, lose everything, lose their ability to, and they grasp a hold of even substance abuse harder. So there does need to be some type of change. The culture is drinking culture every night after infantry training, or we would go out and drink. It is just the culture. But the culture is built by the soldiers or the Marines. not the departments, but the departments need to get a hold of what is actually happening and going on.
Do you think because that, you know, because of the culture of you know, drinking, like you said, for example, does that make people more susceptible to obviously not just misusing, but then utilizing that as a way of either dealing with or avoiding some of the challenges? Like you said, you know, the nightmares or trouble sleeping or things like that. You say, hey, I'm having enough trouble sleeping, but you know what, if I down half of this bottle, I'm gonna pass out anyway. So then I don't have a problem like falling asleep. You should, and I'm not, you know, just from your own experience, right? You know, you can only really speak from your own experience. Do you think that kind of plays indirectly or unintentionally into, you know, maybe us having some individuals develop like poorer or maybe not developing as good a coping mechanism because it's kind of like, hey, this is a way that you can just kind of, I don't say deal with it, but like it's a way to suppress it. Like, hey, I can drink and no one's going to say anything to me about it. But if I go sit down and say, hey, Michael, I need to talk to you, I'm having these problems, that might be a little more awkward of a situation versus then if I just say, having nightmares, I can't sleep, you know what, I'm gonna go out drinking with Jeremy, I'll pass out, then I don't have to worry about, you know, does my kind of like, are you kind of pull the question out of?
Makes sense, definitely.
Okay.
I would say a lot of it is culture driven too, you know. A lot of times, even in the civilian world, the stigma on mental health and receiving help for substance abuse or mental health is still not where it needs to be. It's very timid, very touchy. People say, please reach out to me if you have something to say, but when you reach out to them, oh, he's crazy. I'm not going to talk to him anymore, right? And then a lot of it is pride on the person itself, right? You don't want to admit that this is happening to you. And a lot of times it's embarrassing. You know, you're up all night from those nightmares. You can't sleep. You're very angry. It brings you back to a place you don't want to be at. And the only thing to do, essentially, with the tools given to him, which is a question, are you going to abuse alcohol when you get back? You say no. That's not a tool to give somebody. That's not a resource to give somebody. That's not the proper tools. And if you're not able to realize you're having an issue and to go in your tool bag and find the right tool, you're in trouble. And I think that's where it needs to be, is people need to understand the realization of all these tools and what they're for. At first, I would laugh when a therapist or a substance abuse person would sit me down at a table, have me close my eyes, and I can't close my eyes because I freak out. They're gonna do something to me with my eyes closed, right? But you need to allow yourself to be uncomfortable to become comfortable, if that makes sense. You need to put your pride down. And a lot of veterans would say, oh, I'm not gonna speak to someone that has no veteran experience. Please disregard that. You know, the person that changed my life had no veteran experience. I was with him for 8 years, and without him, I would not be where I'm at. And same as Michael, you know, if I wasn't allowed to accept the advice from Michael, accept the tools and the resources that even he used and everyone else used to get in a place where they are, you're not going to get to that place. You're just going to keep making excuses for yourself. I mean, this isn't just veterans, you know. You have a traumatic car accident, and that car accident is going to replay in your mind. Those same feelings are going to come back when you wake up. If you have a shark attack, if you're not an athlete no more, the cycle is the same regardless of the traumatic experience, to be honest.
You know what I did experience though in my culture and in my time is peer pressure. That, you know, if you went to go talk to somebody and mental health, you know, and your platoon or someone found out, they'd be looking at you kind of like funny, like, is this dude crazy, you know, and, you know, egging you on to like, hey, you know, crazy dude and all this other stuff. But, you know, it was that pride that you didn't want to be that way. So you didn't say anything, you know, and let people know. And then you dealt with it in your own way, you know, secretly, you know, trying to hide it. And like Jeremy said, you didn't want to others to know what you're going through. And, you know, Jeremy, I was just going to say how how blessed he was to meet Michael at the gym and to talk to him and get those resources and to start building on his recovery. And it's more like trust that veterans really need to gain with others to get help, because, you know, we don't know who to trust. And so veterans, that's what I try to do when I talk to those around me, is build that rapport with them, build that trust to get to know them. So that way, if you don't know them, you can't help them. And if you trust you, you get more information and how we can assist them with the tools that they need to start their recovery. So it's building that trust and like you said, letting your walls down to trust somebody and putting your pride in check.
Yeah, I want to kind of add to that, Jeremy, if you don't mind me saying. Jeremy and I talked for a while in the gym before he actually pulled me aside and talked to me. Remember that, Jeremy? We were there for a while, and you know, I don't think that was a comfortable conversation to have. You know what I mean, for you. But it's like when you reach out and do that, a lot of times, you know, it can end right there, because who knows how long somebody's wrestling with wanting to get the help before they actually reach out to somebody to get it. You know what I mean? And a lot of times when somebody's ready, that gives somebody an opportunity to not just help that individual, but also maybe provide some resources and some education to that person's family or loved ones, or something they, you know, that you know, because it's not just the person struggling with the substance use issue that is impacted, right? Sometimes that can lead to being able to have those conversations and help the family learn to support the person as well.
Michael, do you think, well, it's not do you think, why do you think there's still so much stigma around like substance use? And obviously, you know, that I think that's exacerbated maybe, you know, for our service personnel, but I mean, in general, why is it that we view, or do you think that, you know, people kind of still have that stigma? And obviously, how does that stigma maybe play in someone wanting to, or feeling comfortable enough to reach out to someone and say, hey, I do have this problem. Can you help me, or where do I go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors in that. Number one, we've done, you know, historically, it's been a shameful thing because it's been viewed solely from a moral perspective, right? Like, you're a person of bad character. So when somebody has addiction, it's behavioral symptoms, and people feel like, well, if these behavioral symptoms are there, then the person just kind of needs to stop doing it. And if they stop doing it, their life will get better. Well, of course, that's a no-brainer, but how do we get them to stop doing it? So a lot of people don't understand the rewiring that happens in the brain as a result of constant exposure to substance use. They also don't understand the fact that when somebody gets off of drugs and alcohol, how miserable a state they're actually existing in for a while their brain begins to heal, and they have to go back and face the issues that got them there in the first place, right? So it's not an easy task, and especially if you're a vet or a combat vet, you know, it's like, you know, you've been through a lot of you know, a lot of things that you don't want to remember, right? And then now you have to deal with the discomfort of being without the one thing that's helped you get through it all this time. And it's just difficult for everybody. But also, I think in general, Americans, male and female, but probably men more, are really kind of wired to be like, dude, take care of your business, right? Like take care of your business. You know, if you're not functioning well, that's on you. That's something on you. And so it makes us feel, I think, a little bit like less than when we have to go and ask for help. It feels like a little weak. And nobody likes to feel like that. It's not just a vet issue. I think it may be more so a vet issue, but I think it's a person issue in general. I don't know a guy that me and Jeremy went to the gym with who would want to sit and have that conversation any more than Jeremy had that conversation, to be honest with you, because it's something that's like, you know, who wants to talk about like personal things with somebody like that if they feel like they still have some element of control over it. I think that when people reach the point where they realize they don't have any element of control over their use anymore, that they need to reach out, because at that point, it's just a matter of time, depending on the drug, where it can end in something catastrophic.
To touch a little bit what Michael's saying is definitely, you know, I was sitting there crying in the gym breaking down in the gym. And that's the last place, right? I mean, I kind of know everyone there and we knew everyone, talked to everyone. But at that point, I was probably on my last straw. I just lost a few friends to the fentanyl abuse. And you know, I had a feeling I was heading that direction. My heart stopped a few times. I did collapse twice. And luckily, it started beating again a couple of seconds later, you know. And another thing is Michael was touching on just the whole factor of not wanting to go get help, the type of stigma that you're getting. It's not normal, you know, and a lot of people will just give up on you right when you mention it. And the American lifestyle is go, go, go. It's never stop and take care of yourself. You know, we're up till 8, working till 5, then we got the kids practice, whatever it may be. You're constantly moving. And to be able to take that time away, you're affecting your kids, you know, your spouse, not just you. So it's kind of demoralizing. You're not the person you used to be. And it's like that for quite some time. I think it took me about a year off of the opioids to where I would have this feeling of anxiety, but it gets better. You know, the more times you put yourself through it and you pass it without abusing that drug again, it does get better. You start learning. Your brain starts connecting the wires that were connected by the substance, right? So now your brain has to reteach itself how to deal with these type of feelings, to where, especially, you know, vets too, is your fight or flight mode is already gone from PTSD, right? You have instinctual events that will happen and you just react immediately. You don't even mean to. And it's the same as substance abuse. It rewires your brain to where you run to that feel. As soon as you get that feeling, oh, let me take this, it'll take it away. But definitely it's going to get harder before it can get better. If anyone's out there thinking of stopping, I do speak at Aegis treatment centers to veterans and non-veterans. And please stop in and they will tell you when I am going to go out there and help out, because it is critical, not just for veterans. You know, my dad was a meth addict my whole life. He was the guy diving in the dumpsters in Fresno. And he passed away very young. I took care of him until he passed away. And you know what? I think that's what really triggered me, and my friends passing triggered me to change my life, you know. And thank you, Michael, for having that conversation. Sometimes it's just the person you least expected to care and to give you the right path.
If I can, and I'm going to come to Raymond right now with a follow up on that. I just wanted to just real quickly on you know, you mentioned, you know, the fentanyl. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that. That you know, we've seen an increase in fentanyl related overdoses throughout the United States, throughout in California, even here locally in Fresno. And I think sometimes people make and Michael, you can chime in here because we've been doing some work around trying to do some of that awareness and prevention in that area. It's not, you know, you could think that, well, I'm not taking fentanyl, so I'll be okay. Well, if you're taking anything that is not from like a pharmacist, that wasn't prescribed to you, it's basically some type of a counterfeit pill, there could be fentanyl in it, and it just takes literally trace amounts, right? So, I mean, the number one thing is like, don't take medication that's not yours. And I know that's hard for someone when they're, you know, when they're maybe not, what would you say, Michael? Where you're not really thinking clearly at that time, and or, you know, taking things that are prescribed for you. But one of the things that we've also seen, and Michael and I have talked about this, you know, some of our prevention efforts is, you know, fentanyl is being put into other things. So you're thinking like, I don't take pills. Well, they're now finding, you know, fentanyl has been put into cocaine. People are cutting meth. They're cutting. So it's not safe to say, well, I'll do one substance instead of the other and I'll be okay. It's just all of it out there really has a higher risk for individuals out there today. And I mean, it's easy to say, don't do it. I get that. And that's not realistic. But if you're having some struggles, like Jeremy said, hey, you know what? The risk factors are just more higher and higher now. So like, if you are struggling with that, I'm not going to say don't do it because that's not realistic, but it's like, hey, you know what? Reach out for some help. There's a number of ways. I mean, everything from like medical assist. What do you call it, Michael? Matt. Medication.
Medically assisted treatment.
Thank you. Matt, treatment is an option. There's multiple options that people can go into treatment and getting support. So I'm not going to say like don't do it, because I understand like if you could, you just wouldn't do it. People aren't doing this, like Michael said, because they want to, but it's something that has helped them when we're talking about addiction. But just wanted to stress that we're seeing more and more of medications, counterfeits, and even just illegal substances that are now being laced with fentanyl. So it's just
and what people need to
dangerous in general.
understand too is, there's this perception that persists that these even prescribed medications are more safe than street drugs. Well, it's pharmaceutical grade drugs. It's pharmaceutical grade dope, right? You're getting very high grade dope made in professional laboratories prescribed to you in the first place. So those are habit forming, but when those become habit forming and you can't get them anymore and you go buy these off the street, then you are definitely at risk. So usually certainly people can go recreationally go buy some pills for fun and OD, right? Especially if there's fentanyl in them. But a lot of times it has to do with people that are already addicted to pills. I remember when I was going through that in my opioid addiction, I would get pills wherever I could get them because I was being driven by my addiction. I craved the high, but I also didn't want to be sick. And being sick from opioid withdrawal is terrifying, right? Because it's debilitating. Anybody who's ever been through opioid withdrawal will tell you, like, you feel like you want to die. It probably won't kill you, but you feel like you want to die. It is not fun. So you have a positive and negative reinforcer pushing you toward continued use of the drug when it comes to opioids and alcohol and other depressant drugs that produce medically significant withdrawal.
And just for for people out there listening, if you want more info, just go to opioidsafefresno.com. It's a page we set up. We've done work with public health, MAT treatment providers, things like that. If you go to just easy to remember, all one word, opioidsafefresno.com, and you'll find information on there from treatment. You'll find in there where you can get naloxone. You can find out what are all the resources to help prevent, to test, to do all those things, as well as information on treatment. But you brought up fentanyl, and that I really wanted to touch on that, Jeremy, because every day if you flip through that, the news reports, up and down the state, there's just, it's something that's on the rise and it's increasing. And I think some of it is people, as Michael said, that might be addicted to prescription pills. And so maybe now the one a day is not working. And so now you're taking 2, 3 a day. Well, it wasn't intended for you to take 3, so you're changing those. And also I think like Michael's example story really as well of if maybe someone has now become dependent on it, they're trying to track down pills any which way they can. And you're not necessarily always getting medications that are prescribed for you from a reputable source, all those things. So the risk factors go high. So for families, for people that don't even have a substance, just go check out Opioid Safe Fresno. There's a lot more info in there on fentanyl, naloxone, things that you can do that might actually help save the life of someone you care about. So check that out if you guys get a chance. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Real quick, I just want to point out how important Raymond's position and SJVV really is. So in 2014, and this has happened to a lot of veterans, and for non-veterans less than this, Raymond's SJVV, but they're part of WestCare, which is a whole public system of assisting people with substance abuse, finding homes. Because once you clean off the substance abuse, the person that's homeless is still homeless.
Correct.
He still has no resources to get employment. He has no clothes for an interview. I mean, getting rid of one of the issues brings up 100 more, right? And that's how vital it is for Raymond's position and Raymond's detachment from WestCare for veterans is because in 2014, I had no clue about these resources. And I had no idea. When I was losing everything, I had to live off my rucksack, get eggs thrown at me, smoothies thrown at me, that I was a piece of dirt, right? And that's demoralizing in itself. And so if any veterans or non-veterans here are dealing with substance abuse, please go see them and get a treatment and care. It's not as if you need to quit cold turkey. Maybe you do not, but maybe you need to start setting things up in place to set yourself up for a successful release of the substance. And these people are here to help. Now that I send veterans and I deal with veterans, it's amazing. And it's unfortunate the VA doesn't market their programs as they should, or anybody as they should. It's all about knowledge and getting the resources that you need. So if you're listening to this and you're a veteran or non-veteran, please go see Raymond. I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw you under the bus here, but please go see Raymond. And if you're not even a veteran, but Raymond's the only one I'm sure he will still direct you to the right place, So please utilize the community resources of nonprofits, Fresno County, and other things like that, because I did it on my own, and you don't want to do that. Even though 8 years later, I'm here now. I'm employed by the state to get to represent veterans. I have a home. I'm getting my master's degree, but it would have been a lot easier and quicker to do this with some assistance as well.
Yes, I'm actually used to work with at MLK, we call it, a residential facility on Martin Luther King Boulevard off of Jensen. And I worked there over 7 years as an addiction therapist, counselor, with the parole population and community. But we do have residential stays there, and we have outpatient treatment at our Belmont office. We have the outpatient daycare center over there, day reporting center, and they do the assessments and everything. But we also have mental health workers. We have also for the community, we have a housing locator and housing, I would say, department over here at Gateway. So at the end, I can give you the information, the phone numbers to the Belmont office to get started on that piece. But WestCare is a whole network of mental health, substance abuse, veteran services, and housing also. So we have a whole network full of departments that can assist practically anybody with their addiction issues and or substance abuse issues, as well as homelessness issues. So I was really fortunate also to start working with WestCare after 1 year of my my path to recovery, which is awesome because it gave me a stability and a place to call home. I've been with WestCare for 15 years.
So Fresno County is contracted with WestCare. They're and they do have a lot of services, but we have a ton of resources in Fresno County that a lot of people don't really realize. For example, if you were to go to recoverfresno.org, scroll a little bit down the page and look for county provider, it has a whole PDF of every single provider that Fresno County is contracted with, their level of care, what they offer. All of that is in one website. You can also get over the phone screenings. You don't even have to leave home. If you have access to a phone, you can go to 1-800-654-3937 and get a screening right over there for mental health or substance abuse and get misuse and addiction. And you can actually get a referral to one of the contracted providers. So when Fresno County was designing this new system of care that we have, we took a no wrong door policy. And this means that you can call the access line. You can walk into any of our contracted providers. You can go to the Youth Wellness Center, go to Pathways to Recovery, which is on the corner of Cedar and Blackstone, Kings Canyon. And you can actually walk in there and get a screening and assessment. So there's literally a bunch of different ways that you can access care and get right into treatment right away. And if you're a family member and you want information, you could probably walk into those programs and get a little bit of education and resources as well. If you have a family member who may not want to go right away, right? So we have so many, we have privately funded sober livings and programs. We have publicly funded sober livings and programs. We have veterans programs. We have a ton of resources here in the community that people don't know about. I'm contacted weekly and people are like, I can't find anywhere to go. And I'm like, they're everywhere. People just don't know how to find them. And so that's part of the education process for all of us in the field is like, okay, we need to do some better education in trying to help people understand the resources are there and how to access them. So, 1-800-654-3937, or just go to recoverfresno.org, scroll down the page a little bit and look for provider directory. And you're going to see most of the stuff that Fresno County offers is paid for through Medi-Cal or through SABG funding.
Yeah. So thank you for the plug, Mike, on the numbers and the website. And then Raymond, I'm gonna come back to you and have you give at the end here some info so people can also, if they want to reach out to you directly. Like Jeremy said, in the ideal situation, go to whoever is going to be able to help you. If you have a preference for a veteran, for sure, reach out to San Joaquin Valley Veterans, reach out to the VA, reach out to whoever will work. But if you're open to it, even call on the number like Michael said, and they will connect you to a program, and you may be able to say, hey, is there one of these providers that does more work or better, that could better serve me as a veteran, and they can try to identify that as well. I wanted to come back to you. You guys shared some things that I think kind of tied in with what we were talking about right here. It's a little bit of you talked about it, as people look at it as a moral shortcoming, Michael, the stigma around addiction. And so as a result of that, people who maybe are experiencing either substance misuse or an addiction themselves, there's a feeling of shame. So what is one way that we could talk to that individual that maybe is feeling shame about how they can engage in care? And also maybe for their family, say, hey, Raymond's going to be feeling shame as a result of this. You're not going to help by like piling it on him. What are some things that we can do for both the individual, but also maybe for the family members to deal around the shame and being able to get the help that they need for either themselves or a loved one?
I think it's helpful just to let people know how common an issue this is.
Yes.
A lot of people feel isolated, first off, because it's like they have all these things going wrong in their life, and they don't really understand that, like, literally 1 out of 10 people in Fresno County almost have an alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder that's diagnosable. That's a significant number of people, in our county that have this issue. So, you're not alone. We all have a brain, so we're all vulnerable to potentially being addicted at some point. All of us have compulsive behaviors that we wrestle with. If it's not drugs and alcohol, it's usually something else that we want to change about ourselves. So I think bringing this down to a human level to be able to have that conversation. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of times, and Raymond, Jeremy, you guys can correct me if you have a different experience, but a lot of times families are without a structured help to do so are sometimes the worst people in the world to kind of like confront this issue, right? They're too close to the situation. They're angry a lot. They're resentful. They don't understand what's going on. Sometimes it just takes a conversation with somebody who's had this issue or has experience working with this issue, and they can gain that person's trust in 20 or 30 minutes because they can immediately relate, right? So families, if they're struggling trying to get their family member help, it may be good if the person's not seeking help right away for them to go get some education. The program, Naranon, Al-Anon, and try to get some information so that they maybe can learn to have a conversation with this, understand the issue better, so that they're not really confrontational and making the person feel guilty about an issue that they can't control. I mean, when addiction is in full swing, it's just like telling somebody who's diabetic, yelling at them, their body's not going to produce insulin all of a sudden because you're yelling at them, and neither is a person whose brain's been rewired are they going to all of a sudden be able to snap out of an addiction, right? This is something that didn't develop overnight. It's treatable, though it's not curable. We can bring people into remission just like diabetes, but it's a process. It's a process. So if you're having a struggle dealing with your own feelings around a loved one using or whatever, reach out to one of the programs. Reach out to one of the, to people who have an expertise in this, and you go get some education first on this before, so you can kind of learn about the issue and learn how to have a discussion with that person.
Yeah, to hit on what Mike was saying is just basically, definitely get educated. And for me, it helped to understand that people were there to help me, to tell me this is a normal reaction happening. This is a normal occurrence from an injury. When you're going through withdrawals, you're going to have outbursts, it's normal, right? So I think it's important if people are teaching and substance abuse providers to let them know how normal the behavior is due to the situation. Obviously, you don't praise the behavior, but allow them to know that it's normal, right? I think that was big time for me to realize I wasn't the only one and that my reactions were normal to the situation. But it's not normal to spouses, right? So you more likely, it is degrading to tell your significant other that you have this issue. It's much easier to tell a friend that you're having the issue, but unfortunately you live with this person, they're gonna realize you're off your game, right? So you definitely need to have that conversation. But I think it's important to even as the person seeking help, or the person to seek that person help is that person has to want the help. First and foremost, or nothing's going to happen. He's just going to battle it, fight the significant other more. And at that point, I think it's very important to people speaking that the families are with that person, at least the significant other. The children probably don't need to be involved, right? But the significant other definitely needs to be involved, because she needs to understand, or he needs to understand, what's going to be happening. What's the maybe timeline that we're working with here, and maybe the best tools and practices that she can use to make it easier on you, because it's very easy to get upset at somebody that's bunkered down in a room all day playing video games for 5 weeks straight because they can't get away from that feeling. They can't sleep, they're withdrawing. So I think it's very important that you have the support. And if your significant other, don't be mad at them when they can't help this support. At that point, maybe you need to release the home environment and go into a facility. There's so much other ways that you're able to deal with this. So Michael, great job, man.
Raymond, anything you want to add on that particular one?
Yes, I truly believe that, the family really sometimes don't know how to deal with the issue. And, they'll just say, get over it, don't worry about it. You'll be okay. And you won't be okay. Like Jeremy said, there's tools that assist people with mental health and addiction problems, and it takes professional help. So don't think Jeremy was lucky, and he sort of like navigated through his system and by his own self. But some people need a higher level of care and professional assistance. Like Michael and others, therapists that are there for that purpose. I like what Jeremy said, that he has a system of providers, that this one guy was with him for over 8 years. He was a mental health therapist, and he gained his trust, and he was like, he was his to-go guy, and that's what we need. We need people we can trust, and so don't think you can do this on your own. Seek professional help. Michael gave a great resource that it's all over. Help is there, and what Jeremy said is true. I hope the individual wants it, and not only need it, because I know a lot of people that need it, but they don't want it. You have to want to get the help and stick with it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Raymond. I'm going to come back to you guys each and give you guys kind of maybe a last thought, but also if you guys can share some of the resources, because we got about 2 minutes left. As Jeremy and Raymond noted, there's a number of organizations here in Fresno County. We're fortunate that support veterans. We have the VA, San Joaquin Valley Veterans. There's a number of programs and services to support veterans. Jeremy works with veterans on the employment side and getting them connected to resources as well. So there's a lot of resources for veterans. So I just say that for our veterans. So like if you're kind of feeling that, hey, what do I do? And you happen to live in the Fresno area, there is help out there. Reach out to any one of those organizations to get started. If you reach out to Raymond and you need something else, Raymond may say, hey, you know what? That's not what I do here, but you know what? I know the guy. Let me connect you to who can assist you with. And the same thing with the VA and a lot of other organizations that support our veterans. So that I wanted to kind of say first. Second of all, I wanted to just kind of reiterate the services that Michael talked about. We do have a network of care here in Fresno County with different services and systems. So utilizing that 1-800 access line is really the best way to go around it, because if you call that can be for substance use or mental health. You'll actually get a live person. You'll be able to get a screening. You'll be able to ask questions, get connected to services. That's at 1-800-654-3937. Go to recoverfresno.org or recoverfresno.com. So here's the beauty. All those things we've said on the website, you can use .com or .org. We got them both. So just recoverfresno.com or .org. It'll get you in there. You got the list of the providers. That is updated, I think, like every other month, I believe, Michael. So the information on the provider directory is always there. So if you don't want to call the access line, you want to call the programs directly, you can call and ask them questions. So really do that for fentanyl. I want to remind people that opioidsafefresno.com or .org. There's info in on where you can get naloxone, where you can get other information on treatment, but also prevention and support. And lastly, from a prevention side, I wanted to just tell people, if you're looking for information on just general prevention, go to havethetalkfresno.com or .org, right? Either one of them. And we've got information in there that's useful for individuals who just want information for themselves, not on the substance use, but on the prevention side, but also for parents maybe that are looking for things that they can have. And how do you have that conversation? That's why it's called Have the Talk. Like, how do you have that conversation with your kids? How do you have that conversation maybe with a loved one? How do you have that conversation, with someone else? So a lot of times that, as for a number of reasons you guys pointed to, it can be a difficult conversation. So that's why we kind of even called the little page Have the Talk, because we want to normalize people talking and asking questions. We probably could do this for like the rest of the afternoon and still not get through all the questions and discussions. So I want you guys to know that that are listening, that's not the entirety of when we're talking about like substance use, misuse, or even just substance use and how it relates to our veterans, because we could go like a couple of days on each one and various population. This was just a way for us to kick off Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. So hopefully you'll go get, like Jeremy said, get educated on some of these subjects, get knowledgeable on some of these subjects. If you work in the field, check out some of these resources, become familiar with resources like the San Joaquin Valley Veterans and other things out there if you happen to be working for with veterans. And just for families, always just, find out the more info, new info. Things change, things from maybe what we experienced in the past where you would go get, your substances on the street corner. Now people are using cash apps and having stuff delivered or dropped off at the side of their house, and your kid never leaves the house and is able to score. So just stay up to date on those things. We hope this week you'll check out our social media, Facebook, Instagram. We'll have some links and information in there for Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. But you can visit, like I said, any of the websites. All of them have that 1-800 number, have that information to be able to support it. And I'm going to come back now to each of you guys. And if you can give kind of a 2 parts, kind of like a final thought, maybe a tip or something like that, or something for someone to think about that's maybe going into the service, someone who's in the service, someone who might be getting out, as far as, being able to reach out and take care of themselves. I think, Jeremy, you're talking about, we've got to slow down at some point and take care of ourselves. We can't be go all the time. And then if there's a number, like Ray, you had mentioned a couple of numbers and things like that, please feel free to share those at these points too. I'm going to start off with Michael and then kind of work up to you guys, because you guys will have, Michael and I have pretty much the same number and info that we would be using. So, Michael, any final thoughts? You're on mute.
I would just tell people, if it's scary sometimes to get help, and you wonder, is it going to yield any long-term benefits? Well, it has for a ton of people, and I like to tell people this. In America we have about 21, maybe 20, close to 22 million people who suffer from substance use disorder, but we have more than 25 million in recovery. We have more people in recovery than we have in active addiction, which means that this problem is not insurmountable. It's hard to get through in the beginning, but with support, it can be done. And there's bright future on the other side of this. So I would just encourage anybody to who's even thinking about seeking help, at least go get an assessment done. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you into a treatment program. Go talk to somebody, and maybe that will help tip the scales one way or the other in helping you make a decision, to get help.
Yes.
Go, Ray.
My direct number, my cell phone number is 290. I forgot my number. 290-1738. 290-1738. And that's my direct cell phone number. I can link you to different services. My office number is 255-8838. And that's the San Joaquin Valley Veterans here in Fresno on Chestnut, from just south of McKinley. And just call our office and Brandy will connect you to different services also. Our Belmont office for assessments for just anyone is 237-3420, 237-3420. And that's where you can get assessments for outpatient and inpatient treatment for West Care. One final thought is we do carry these little bags around here. It's called Narcan. For those who may be experience some kind of overdose, and we carry it, and we take classes on these. We're trained to use this through West Care. And we try to, I've been clean and sober for 18 years. And you know what? I stay connected to Alcoholics Anonymous. They have an outside group on Facebook, and they have on the outside group on Facebook, they have different websites to connect to AA meetings. I go to AA meetings 12 o'clock during my lunch hour on Zoom, and I stay connected with my sponsor. And my sponsor always says, you know what? You don't have an alcohol and drug problem. You have a living problem. And it's not just the alcohol and drugs, you stop that. But then it's life. It's issues in life that you deal with. And it's not the so much the drugs or alcohol now. It's the things that make you want to go get it. Anger issues, depression, loneliness. And there's a acronym called HALT. Don't get too angry, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So, you know, those acronyms help out. So, you know, today, don't be ashamed. A lot of people do have these issues, but you know, it takes a bigger person to admit it than to run away and be a coward and not face it. So face it, you know, live life, enjoy it. I'm like gonna be 64. I feel like I'm a 40-year-old person. So that's all for me.
Perfect. Jeremy, any final thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I don't think I misrepresented or anything like that. So I will state how to locate me. We do, I work for the state. I'm a vet rep. As you can tell with me and Raymond in here, we kind of know about each other's programs. So go to Workforce Connection at Manchester Mall, ask for Jeremy and they'll come get me. And then what we do here is we do employment, but I noticed coming from the VA and working for them for a long time that state, federal, county, nonprofits, even between the VA departments, they don't communicate, they don't speak. Sometimes it's very hard to get to where you need to go. So if you come with me with a few issues, I'm able to reach out, send the referrals where people will come to you. You won't have to chase people or run around. Everyone's going to come to you and kind of make you feel important, right? That's the main thing, right? Is that you need the help, so we're going to bring it to you, okay? So I give my veterans my cell phone, 559-493-0919. Just go ahead and reach out to me. And then another thing is get the help. You know, each program and agency is going to have their own policies and procedures. Don't get upset at their policies and procedures. They're heavily regulated from state, federal, and other guidelines and regulations that they must follow, treating and administering substance abuse medicine or even therapy. I used to get a little upset at some of the rules. I'm a little bit of a troublemaker sometimes, so I don't like to follow everyone's guidelines, and I feel like I know everything. But that's what kind of got me there, right? So they're in place for a reason. Even with ages, I came back to help them. And trust me, I didn't believe in all the policies and procedures, but you know what? You're there for a reason. You accept it, and you need to accept it to get the final help you need. Because without the VA and other programs, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I'm very thankful, and your life will change. It might get worse before it gets better, but it will start turning around, okay? So seek the help. Go to where it makes you feel comfortable as well. Not every spot is gonna have the person for you. If it's not the VA and it's free, well, then maybe you got to pay a little bit of money, right? Maybe you got to do something outside the box to receive what you need. And then release your biases that you have on substance abuse and seeking help. You got to release that. You got to allow everyone to help you. I now can sit with anyone and probably learn something from them, even if I don't like them as what they are, right? And then after you get treatment, you're successful. You need to be able to stay involved to maintain and obtain your sobriety, right? It's all about staying involved, because if not, you can go down that path very quickly again. I'm not perfect. I've went down the path again before, and it's not fun, right? So you gotta maintain and obtain your ability to stay the way you are. Okay, just go get the help. We're all here to help. So everyone have a good day. I'm sorry for taking up so much time.
No, thank you guys all for joining us. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day, giving up your lunch to help us with this. This is going to remain on our social media, so well, at least on our YouTube and on our Facebook, so people will be able to go back and watch this. And we find a lot of times that, you know, you come back in a couple of months and we've had hundreds of these where people go back and get the info. So for anyone watching right now, if you missed something, a number, just wait till this thing is finalized. You can go back, rewind, and kind of skip around and get the info you need. Raymond shared some great numbers and resources. Jeremy shared his contact. Michael shared some of ours. For us, it's just easy. Again, the access line, if you go to any three other websites, web pages we shared, recoverfresno.org.com, havethetalkfresno.org.com, opioidsafefresno.org.com. All of those will have the phone numbers and links to the other things that you know on there as well.
Can I say one more quick thing?
Yeah.
Just to give some hope here is last year I had my first veteran, and I got him a federal job, right? About a month later, he came to me saying he's not showing up to the job because he needs to go seek substance abuse help. We got him involved to a Palo Alto center for 6 months. He came back, didn't contact me because he thought I had some bias on him that he let me down. But we ended up meeting again. And now he's got another federal job fighting wildfires in the middle of the country after obtaining sobriety. So it can happen. What you might leave behind might be big time, but there's always a future involved for the remaining. Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. Hopefully this will be part of the continuing effort to just educate and inform our community about substance use and misuse, and also some of the misunderstandings that people have. And I think you guys shared some really great tips and some insights for people. So feel free to share this. Anyone who's watching this later, if you feel this is useful and you can share it with a family member or someone you know, feel free to do that as well. Again, if you need information, the 1-800 number is the best bet, 1-800-654-3937. With that said, I want to thank Raymond, San Joaquin Valley Veterans and West Care. I want to thank Jeremy, and I don't want to put your employment but thank you on blast, but thank you, Jeremy. And if you need to see Jeremy, go down to the Workforce Connection and he will be able to assist you, the one here in Manchester. And Michael, thank you for always assisting and supporting us. I'm lucky, like I said, to have Michael be part of my team here. So he's our in-house expert, and we tend to go to him with a lot of substance use questions. And a lot of times, even though he has the expertise, he's just like, no, you need to talk to someone else on that. Or or you know what, you need to talk to this person or that person or organization, really get it. So I appreciate him always looping in other experts in our community to help with this. So thank you all. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully people enjoyed it. And we'll hopefully do this again, maybe sometime soon. If not before that, for sure, maybe around September for National Recovery Month. We can definitely have, I think, another conversation around this, if not before.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good day.